Welcome back to JT's Mixtape, episode number 35. And if you guys are enjoying these podcasts, please give me a 5-star review on either Apple or Spotify. And if you're watching on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button. Thank you.
Come closer, my child.
I have got a podcast sponsor. I was happy to partner with Modern Roots Life, and this is really cool because it's a Christian company. Modern Roots Life, they provide natural health supplements, natural salts, beef liver, magnesium, copper, lots of things. Natural, third-party tested supplements. And I think for me, I often complain about being very tired and having a bit of brain fog trying to do everything that we're trying to do. So I just started my regime. And so I'm excited to see how it works out because I think like you guys in this community that we don't really want to go to the doctor anymore. And I'm not saying you'll never have to, but I'm saying that if I can be more healthy, then I'm doing my best to try to do that now. Physically and spiritually and mentally. So if you guys want to check out Modern Roots Life, check out the link in my description. People often ask how they can support me. Well, I think it's really cool if you can support me by supporting people that support me. And you get something in return. And obviously being healthy is a pretty good return. Brian, what's going on, brother?
Oh, nothing much. Just a wonderful day to be alive, and I'm glad we're not bombed here in California.
Okay, we're going to get right into it. So I before we started the podcast, I told Brian, I said, you know what, I think a lot of people enjoyed last episode, and I know that lots of people did. But I mean, from me personally, I like the weird stuff. I don't really like to talk about politics and just the kind of daily headline stuff. That's not what this show is really about. I mean, it is a variety show. But I did say we would be remiss if we did not talk about a little bit. And maybe we'll share a video just to start. Israel versus Iran, and potentially is the U.S. going to jump in? Lord, no, please.
Hope
we don't want that. But
yes.
But anyways, let's watch this video and then we can maybe discuss it. And then we will not talk about this the rest of the show.
Yeah.
If you're watching Western media coverage of the Iran-Israel crisis, you might be witnessing a rather upside-down, topsy-turvy, bizarro view of the world, of reality. You're not being told everything. You're being given skewed perceptions. For example, if you're watching Western media coverage, you might come away with the impression that Iran attacked Israel out of the blue and Israel is responding, when it's the other way around. We all saw on Thursday night that it was Israel that launched an illegal act of aggression against Iran. Iran is the victim here, Israel is the aggressor, but in the Western media coverage, Israel is the victim always. Some other points you may miss while watching Western media coverage, for example, Iran doesn't have nuclear weapons. Israel does. Iran is a signatory to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, the NPT. Israel isn't. Iran has allowed IAEA inspectors into its country. Israel doesn't. It's a nuclear double standard that I raised with former Israeli Deputy Foreign Minister Danny Ayalon a few years back on my Al Jazeera English show Head to Head, in a clip that's recently gone viral again.
How many nuclear weapons does Israel have? Because experts say it's anywhere between 80 and 400.
So what?
So what?
Yeah, so what? Has Israel ever threatened...
Do you recognize the hypocrisy of Israel having a secret illicit nuclear weapons program that it won't open up its doors to and won't talk about, and then lecturing everyone else in the region about nuclear weapons?
Absolutely not. You know why?
You talked about hypocrisy. Let me ask again. If an Iranian guest came on my show and I asked him about Iran's nuclear program, he said, I don't know, I'm not going to talk about it. Would you be okay with that? You'd be outraged.
Of course I
would. And yet you
be.
sit here as a former minister of the Israeli government saying, I don't know, never talked about nukes with anyone.
Because there was like 16 United Nations Security Council resolutions against Iran.
And there is against Israel. And there is against Israel as well.
About
your nuclear program?
No.
Yes, there is. UN Resolution 487. Let me read it to you. The UN Security Council in 1981 says, calls upon Israel urgently to place its nuclear facilities under the safeguards of the IAEA. Why haven't you done that?
Because
There you have it, the nuclear double standard. Israel violates multiple UN Security Council resolutions when it comes to its own stockpile of nuclear weapons. And yet Western media interviewers who have multiple Israelis on air all the time never really ask about this, never really ask about Israel's nukes. Why? I get why Israel wants to maintain its policy of nuclear ambiguity, of not confirming or denying that it has nukes. But why does the US media, the UK media, the Canadian media, why do they all have to go along with it?
Very sus. Very sus. And it's so obvious.
I mean, it's an excellent question. I mean, that's the thing. It's kind of like that. Yeah, what he said at the beginning about how if you just probably flipped on Fox News, you'd have thought, oh, that Iran just bombed Israel out of the blue. But it's exactly the opposite. It was that Trump was literally trying to negotiate a nuclear agreement with Iran.
Peace deal.
And he was trying to use the diplomatic route. And
the
in the
day
middle
before.
I think it was like right during the diplomacy, they
were supposed to meet the next day.
Okay, so so right in the middle of them scheduling meetings, Israel goes out there and bombs Iran.
No, they didn't just bomb Iran. They murdered the diplomatic individual who was going to make the peace treaty and sign the agreement with Trump. That's who they targeted. You know that, right?
I actually did not know
They killed
that.
him in his bedroom, in his house, in his neighborhood. They bombed the dude's direct house while he was in his bed sleeping. Killed the guy that was making the deals with Trump. That was going to make the peace.
I did not know that. So that's worse.
Yeah. Oh, it's worse than worse. Yeah.
And so after all that, so obviously Iran retaliates, and you have all these people on X and social media. I stand with Israel, pray for Israel, but you're like, they bomb like 6 countries in a week, and then it's like we're worried about them, but it's like, but they are the aggressor in this situation, most certainly. And yeah, so like, it's kind of like that. We've been taught and conditioned to say that, oh, well, Iran's really dangerous. I'm not saying they're not, but to Israel's neighbors, Israel seems pretty dangerous. I mean, what a lot of people don't realize is that they think that Israel has the whole nation, right? But actually, I think they've illegally occupied a part of Palestine in Gaza that actually, I think the UN again, there was a UN resolution where they illegally took this land during this thing, and they're supposed to give it back, and they never did. So that's literally what they were arguing about, was that Israel has occupied this part of Palestine where people live, and so they were unable to vote in elections. And yeah, they were just like literally like, they're enemies of this state.
It's worse than that, I think, even.
And not only that, they obviously bomb Yemen, so they bomb Iran. I'm not exactly sure if they bomb Syria. I was told 6, but I know they at least bombed 3 the day. So they bombed Iran, I think Yemen, and then Gaza, all on the same day. That everyone's saying, pray for Israel. I stand with Israel.
You're so ignorant.
If you want to stand with Israel, why don't you go over there and do it?
Yeah, go.
But but obviously, from my perspective, anyways, other than just obviously just the Christian perspective, it's like we don't support any of this stuff.
No.
But I'm telling you what though, that I didn't vote for Trump, but obviously I'm glad he won over Kamala. But that being said, it's like if Israel brings the United States into this war and Trump allows it, he's going to lose the base big time. Obviously, it's like, what kind of America first thing is this going to be, where they're going to start some massive boondoggle again in the Middle East? Which obviously, again, like this is the kind of stuff that makes people
lied to Trump.
Trump, do not defend Trump in this situation.
No, I'm not.
He knows what's going on, and it pisses me off that he's not aware enough to know that we cannot afford to go to war. I mean, people are like taking out loans to buy groceries in the United States, and if they go to war, print trillions of dollars to do it, then our economy is going to be in the toilet. It's already pretty much in the toilet, and it's going to make, I mean, again, like you're going to write checks that our grandchildren are going to have to pay for. And And for what? And for what? I mean, I guess that's the thing. It's like this stuff is nonsense. And yeah, so the fact that Israel has what many people believe this secret nuclear program, or how many ever warheads or whatever they've got, and we're supposed to just think that's fine. Oh, because they would never use them. Oh, really? They wouldn't? I mean, like, if you're their neighbors, would you really be confident in that?
No, definitely not.
I mean, but yeah, so I mean, all that being said, is that, oh gosh, no, not another war in the Middle East. No, please.
I gotta
no.
say something. I gotta say three things actually. Number one, the Iron Dome that Israel supposedly has isn't real. Okay.
No. Well, you know, I heard a video on this, because a lot of people said, yeah, obviously lots of those ballistic missiles from Iran got through it easily, but what the Iron Dome is for low-level rockets, RPGs. But the ballistic missiles go way higher, they're way bigger, and they come down
way faster.
Yeah, so there's, I think somebody said there's something called what is it, David's Sling, and it was something Arrow was the program to try to shoot down ballistic missiles. But they were really saying that the only thing they can really effectively do it are these missiles
Lasers.
They're called the Interceptor. I think the United States has this technology, but they're real limited. So they would run out of them. Okay, that's the end of that. Let's move on. Let's get a little bit of a palate cleanser. Let's talk about Disney.
Yeah, okay, deal.
Did you ever catch that reference, Brian? Did you ever make that connection?
No, I never noticed that one.
You know, it's interesting in the way that, you know, if you guys are not aware of this, I'm not exactly sure about Snow White in particular, but many of the classic princess movies are Hans Christian Andersen, like, poems or books or whatever that have been adapted. The fairy tales came from works, you know, many years before. And Disney, like they like to do, is they change the story subtly. Now, like the Little Mermaid, classically, is that what happens? Happily ever after. She gets the guy. It's all fine. Everything's good. But in the book,
she dies.
She dies.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw a comment, so I'm not exactly positive about this, but I mean, it makes sense. In the book, Snow White dies. So it's not happily ever.
I don't know.
It sounds like that what these fairy tales were more similar to tragedies like Romeo and Juliet, which maybe that's what this story really is.
Well, they're from their grimoires, which grim is where we get the word grim and death. Like, I mean, it's also grimoires, the books of magic and witchcraft. So, I mean, like a lot of these are grimoire stories. So, when you realize what it is, it's all stemming to occultic tales of something wicked, you know.
Well, I mean, that being said, let's just say the original meaning of the story. Let's go back to, again, The Little Mermaid. I forgot what that was called. The original book was called. But, of course, it's funny in the kind of stuff that we talk about, how this is some story of, like, this person who left their first estate in order to, you know, fall in love with somebody on Earth. Like, it's kind of a story of, like, instead of coming from the heavens, this being comes from the sea, and then it's this unnatural love that goes against her father's wishes. Like, in the movie, she literally makes a deal with the devil, like signs her name on this wicked contract. She promises her soul to this devil. Yeah, I mean, obviously there's some kind of battle with the devil character at the end, but it works out, right? It works out. And, like, but what kind of message does that actually teach children? To follow your heart. It'll be happily ever after, right? Like, don't listen to your dad. He doesn't know what he's talking about. He doesn't understand you. He doesn't understand love. He doesn't understand you need to go find out what things are that he's trying to protect you from. Because he's a good dad, it's because he's a jerk, right? And then so she gets what she wants at the end. So what would that teach children?
To be immoral? I don't know.
Well, father your heart over the authority that's telling you to do what's obviously the right thing. But if the story was as it's written in the book, she dies.
Yeah.
So you'd be like, she should have listened to her father. right?
Yep.
And so then Snow White, I was wondering, I think the guardian angel thing, I don't know if I agree with that interpretation. But what if it was a situation where, again, it's more like Romeo and Juliet, like she ate some poison apple, he kisses her lips. What if he died then too? Or
Yeah.
what if he unalived himself because his love was gone, and so then they both go into the afterlife together afterwards.
That is a little weird. I haven't seen it in so long, so I'll have to rewatch it and get a better consensus of that, I suppose.
But that is interesting that it did say in the little scroll on there that it said even in death.
Yeah.
When we were told, we thought she was just sleeping, right? But I guess she wasn't just sleeping. Yeah, I mean, with the imagery, with looking like a New Jerusalem possibly out there, that was right on the money. That looked like heaven. That didn't look like a fairy tale kingdom, did it?
Definitely questionable.
Okay, we're gonna stick on the Disney theme because I found a pretty interesting video. Of course, I've never been one to visit the Disney lands and the Disney worlds because I just never really got into that sort of thing. But this is a really interesting video.
Disneyland has a ride where you literally go to hell. No joke. You start in this charming English mansion. Everything feels innocent, whimsical, musical, bookish. Then you hop into a motor car. Suddenly there's chaos. You crash through a fireplace. You're driving through London. The cops are chasing you. Next thing you know, you're in a court. A judge slams the gavel and you're found guilty. But instead of going to jail, you crash headfirst into an oncoming train and you... The next room, it's fire, demons, red lighting, hot, heat. You're surrounded by devilish creatures in an inferno. It's literally hell, and Disney never explains it. No redemption, no Mickey Mouse saving you, just eternal damnation. Welcome to Mr. Toad's Wild Ride.
The ride literally ends in hell. Like that's how the ride ends. That's insane.
Yeah, I thought you would enjoy that one. I was just like, yeah, that is really. It's interesting, the contrast, right? Because in Snow White, in Little Mermaid, they make it end happily ever after. But in Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, they make it end as dark as it could possibly end. You straight up go headfirst into a train, and then you are sent directly to hell.
That's insane. That's like so comically insane. And then people are like, oh, Disney's great.
Yeah, it's just like, it's just kind of like one of those things where like, yeah, that's weird. Especially you guys, your little kids with you, are just like, I don't know. Hopefully they don't ask any questions about this because I have no answers for them.
Yeah, for sure. That's a weird one to try to answer. Mommy, like, why is there a demon looking at me at the end of the ride and fire? Because you're in hell, darling. You're in hell. Like,
well, you should listen. You've been pretty naughty, so that's why.
Oh my gosh, Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. Wow.
Yeah, wild indeed.
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna keep it moving. I've been wanting to talk about dragons a little bit. Do you want to talk about dragons, Brian?
Sure.
So let me get this straight. You believe in dinosaurs, but you don't believe in dragons? Did you know in the 1936 Webster's Dictionary, the word dragon was listed as a real creature, a huge serpent, just now rare. Not imaginary, not make-believe, rare. Now take a look at this picture, burn it into your mind, because I'm about to read something from an old book in my collection. This is an account of Marco Polo's travels where he wrote about huge serpents. In this province are found snakes and great serpents of such vast size as to strike fear into those who see them. They have 2 forelegs near the head. The head is very big and the eyes are bigger than a great loaf of bread. The mouth is large enough to swallow a man whole. Those who take them proceed to extract the gall from the inside. If a woman is hard in labor, they give her such a dose and she is delivered at once. Again, if one has any disease and applies a small quantity of this gall, he shall speedily be cured. So, a natural cure-all from a creature that we were told never existed. If it did exist, that would be a big problem for Big Pharma. Now, let's talk about dinosaurs. The word dinosaur wasn't invented until 1842, and nearly all ancient civilizations depicted dragons in art, writing, or another form. And the dinosaur bones you think you were seeing in the museums, most of these are plaster, resin, not the real thing. And the Chinese zodiac calendar just happens to have 11 real animals and one mythological creature. Dinosaurs are as real as the images of Earth NASA puts out. Just something to think about.
You know, that makes so much sense why we hunted them to the point of extinction. If Marco Polo was putting out a cure-all, like, of course they went around, like, killing them. And they're like, dude, we got to get the gold so we could sell the medicine. That's why the dinosaurs don't exist anymore. They killed all the dragons, guys. They killed them all. They were just murdered them for magical property stuff. It was an animal that went extinct.
That's really interesting, though, that I liked. First of all, that's an A+ video. That's a friend of mine on X and TikTok. So, yeah, excellent video. That was awesome. But that's really interesting because I'd often heard that Marco Polo wrote about dragons. But it was funny because I was trying to find other videos to correlate this that went deeper into what Marco Polo said, and it's really hard to find, honestly. I don't know why, because I mean, obviously that seems like something that's really interesting. But what he said, that the eyes were as big as like a loaf of bread.
That's pretty big.
That's what on the plane, or not the plane of Earth, what on this plane of Earth, or even in the sea, has an eye as big as a loaf of bread?
Whale eyes are only about that big, I think. So they're bigger than whale eyes, maybe even.
Maybe like a one of those giant squids or something like that. They have big eye. They have big eyes, but I mean, still, like, just thinking like with two eyes as big as a loaf of bread. I mean, that's like straight out of like Game of Thrones.
That's
Desolation of Smaug, or how do you say his name?
Smaug.
Smaug. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's like, so now when he's describing like that, what he said, the mouth was big enough to swallow a man
whole. Yeah.
So now you're talking about not just any kind of, we're not talking about a Komodo dragon.
But they were able to
we're talking about like a dragon like the knights used to fight in the mythologies, right?
Who had a gallbladder that helps people in labor. So I mean, sounds like a hot commodity.
Well, that seems, yeah, like that was a good point she made. That seems to add more credibility. It's like, because if you're just going to just making these fantastical tales about these mythical beasts, it's sort of weird that you have some like detailed recipe of how you use the gall to help with birth, like with birth pains or something like that. What was that about? It was,
yeah, help with labor. It would immediately deliver her.
Of course, now in the research that we do, which we often say, the most fishy time in ever existence has to be between about 1776 and probably the early 1900s. So almost anything that happened in the 1800s, I don't know how much of it's true at all.
Yeah.
But that's when they start discovering dinosaur bones.
Yep.
Or what they start to do is, which she didn't mention, is that I believe the first person who found a dinosaur bone was somebody named Robert Plot. I forgot. It was like, I kind of get the details foggy, but I think it was a guy maybe in the 1700s found this bone, which he concluded, this guy from Oxford University, he concluded at first that it was a elephant bone, femur bone. But then later he decided, you know what? Actually, I believe it's the femur of a giant humanoid, like a Nephilim giant, like a real giant. And then so later, almost 100 years later, at the same university, Oxford, some guy says, oh, no, it's a dinosaur bone. So It's kind of like that the bones always existed. Mm-hmm. The difference is, so it's not like they started finding dinosaur bones in the 1800s. They started labeling them as dinosaur bones in the 1800s. So what did they call them before? Dragon bones, giant bones.
Yep. Well, they probably called them dragons because they probably knew what they were too. I mean, like the fact that there's another story about a dragon that gets killed. But you know the story of Bel, Bel and the dragon in the Bible. And
What is that? That's in is that in Daniel? Like there's a
Daniel,
13th chapter of Daniel.
Yeah, and Daniel apparently he said like there's like Nebuchadnezzar, is it, or something, that was like trying to like destroy all the things. He brings a dragon up and he says, who is this that is greater than this dragon that they all worshipped, right? And so I guess Daniel takes pitch and feather and something else, and he feeds it to the dragon, and the dragon explodes because the dragon breathes fire. And so if the dragon eats the pitch and the feathers, and he does something to like make the dragon try to like shoot fire out its mouth or something, well, it lights the pitch in its throat and causes the dragon to explode and die. And then he's like pissed that he killed the dragon. Everybody wants to kill Daniel. This is the story in Bel and the Dragon. You know that story?
Yeah. I mean, I'm aware of it a little bit. I know Daniel 13 is like, it's weird.
Yeah, it's very weird.
It's kind of a departure from the other 12 chapters.
Sure it is. But at the same time, it's an interesting concept that he says that he fed the dragon pitch, feathers, and something else. And it's like, and then the dragon exploded. And you're like, well, that would make sense if the dragon breathes fire and he just like lit the tar on fire. He lit the pitch on fire, like in his mouth. Like that would make sense. That's why the dragon died. You know what I mean? So like apparently these creatures could breathe fire as well as were, big, lizardy, giant with teeth and monstrous, And that's why I think also Marco Polo, I think he mentions about dragons in China that pulled his cart supposedly.
Well, yeah, there was, she didn't get to that part, but I know that, some of the accounts were that, like rich people, like train them, how to train your dragon, right?
Yeah.
Like you got those movies out now. Well, of course, biblically, we have Leviathan. And other than, well, obviously Satan is described as a dragon. I mean, that could be allegorical, but I believe that Leviathan is a real creature or was a real creature. Is Leviathan still out there? I don't know. Interesting, I was reading the book of Enoch, and it mentions that there's like these two primordial beasts, and one's a female and one's a male. And so Leviathan is the female that lives in the sea, and then Behemoth is the one who lives somewhere on the land. But what's interesting is, so if you go into Job 41, I won't read the whole description. You guys should check this out. You guys haven't read this, or haven't read it recently. But if you read Job 41:20, it says, out of his nostrils goeth smoke, as out of the seething pot or cauldron. His breath kindleth coals, and a flame goeth out of his mouth. So I mean, it's like,
like
you go through
fire.
If you go through the other descriptions, it's like, this is a dragon. I said it's either just a dragon like Lord of the Rings or like the whatever, the Hobbit, or it's like Godzilla.
It's like Godzilla.
I mean, it kind of is described like Godzilla. I mean, he's got like these scales that nothing can penetrate. They're so close together. He's got this armor. And obviously you think smoke coming out of its nostrils, breathing fire out of its mouth. Some people would say this is allegorical, but it's kind of like, why would God's kind of like showing Job how small he is and how little he knows. And he's describing two creatures that he created. So it kind of would make no sense that God was telling about a creature that did not exist.
Yeah, wouldn't make sense.
Right. So, I mean, I would say that, yes, they exist.
Okay, here's my thing that I like to bring up, because this is like what dragons are. So this is a wyvern. Okay, it's this thing. It's just there's a difference. Dragons have 4 legs and wings. Wyverns have 2 legs and wings. Okay, drakes don't have wings. And these things, the lindworm, that's fake, and the amphitheater, that's fake, and then the worm is just this giant snake. Okay, so worm is a snake, wyvern is a T-Rex, dragon is fake, and drakes are real. They're just other types of dinosaurs. And so this is literally what you see when you type in wyvern. When you look at the crest, what you're looking at, this, if you notice, all the dragons in old crests, they all have 2 legs and wings. and little wings. Little wings kind of like a T-Rex. But see, here's the thing. People don't think this is a T-Rex. This is a T-Rex, guys. They drew the tail curly because, and now we see T-Rex tails don't curl. But like this is an artist rendition. So like the artist didn't know that the T-Rex tail doesn't curl. He just sees a tail and he thinks it looks like a cat. So he's like, oh yeah, they got a tail. So they make it like windy. Like that's not how their tails were. But most of the dragons you see on things are actually just T-Rexes. Like that's a modern one. They add the extra legs, but most of them are just like chickens, bro. They're like chickens. They're like 2 legs. See those stupid little, if you look at the T-Rex skeleton, the stupid little hands it has, those stupid little hands, those are its wings. It's just like an ostrich skeleton. So if you look at the ostrich, that's what it is. Ostrich skeleton versus T-Rex. So like, look, this is an ostrich. This is the ostrich skeleton. And it's so obvious. Look at the ostrich has these stupid little 2 hands, right? Okay, that's the ostrich's wings. This T-Rex has the same stupid little 2 hands. He has freaking wings, guys. And like, who knows if he had cartilage that went out and it made its wings bigger. But the T-Rex had a big mouth and he's a freaking ostrich. Like with a big head. He's got wings. So all T-Rexes have wings. So all T-Rexes are dragons. It's very obvious. It's very obvious when you look at the skeletal thing and you look at the structure. That is a T-Rex. That's why, and same with raptors. Raptors were little dragons. Okay, that's why the word raptor means bird of prey, because this is a raptor skeleton. Looks just like an ostrich skeleton, by the way. That's ostrich. That's raptor. Okay, so like when you look at the difference, you're like, oh, wait a second. I thought raptors were like the thing you see in Jurassic Park. No, the dinosaur you see in Jurassic Park, by the way, the raptors you see in Jurassic Park, do not look like that. In fact, they discovered the raptor that looked like the one in Jurassic Park after, and they named it after Steven Spielberg. There's actually a raptor called the Spielbergian raptor, which is literally named after the raptor that Steven Spielberg created, because that's not what
he was like. I want a T-Rex, but I want it to be small.
Yeah, exactly. So, but real raptors look like ostriches, by the way. They have tiny little heads like ostriches, and they look stupid. They look really stupid. They look like dumb-looking little lizard, tiny-headed things. Okay, he made the raptors look cool-looking in Jurassic Park. That's not what they look like.
Isn't it funny to think, like, isn't a pterodactyl, I mean, isn't the difference between a pterodactyl and a dragon kind of negligible anyways? It's like, it's kind of this flying dinosaur. It's like, you know what I'm saying? It's like, oh, it's totally not a dragon, though, right? Isn't it a pterodactyl? I mean, it flies. It's got kind of bat-looking vibes.
Pterodactyl and a what, you said?
Well, I'm saying like a pterodactyl is kind of like, isn't that kind of like a dragon?
Well, yeah, it is. It is a dragon.
That's what I'm saying. It's like, I mean, you're kind of like, it's totally not a dragon, but it's kind of like a bat creature that's big.
Well, that's why they had multiple different things that looked different ways. And if you notice, they're all, which by the way, they're all dead in the same pose. They all look like this. They all look dead like that. The reason why they look dead like that is because it freaking drowned. That means this animal drowned. When its arched neck goes backwards, that's the osteo whatever death pose. That means an animal drowned. So all of the dinosaurs that you see are dragons. Most of them drowned. And that's why they look like this with their arched back and their neck going back like that. So those are dragons. This thing drowned. This thing died in drowning. This thing died in drowning. This thing died. Well, this one died in drowning. Some of them, they didn't die in drowning because some of them lived past it. But if you see their neck arched backwards, it died in drowning. That's literally how that animal dies when it drowns. That's how they die. They die like that.
I also think that they're taking a little bit of license, and they're making the hands and the arms look more detailed than you could actually see from the skeletons. I think they're trying to, again, make the Spielbergian raptor.
The Spielbergian raptor. That's
but you know what's interesting again. So as she rightfully said, and I've made that point before, that the Chinese zodiac, it has all real animals except for a fake one, a mythological one.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's legit. And you know, it's interesting too. It's kind of like, why would kingdoms have some kind of a crest with a fake being on it?
They're going
So
to
like,
choose the most magnificent creature that they found.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that
so
was
what-
obviously the biggest one they found. That was
so what's
it.
interesting is, so if you go to this, I've talked about this a little bit. If you guys don't know anything about the city of London or Londinium, which is like a Roman city, and if you go over here, you can check out. I remember that was one of the things that was real striking about this was that they had dragons all over this place.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, of course. Of course they do.
Yeah,
No.
I mean, like, what's up with that? Like, why would you have that decorating your city?
Yeah, because they're, and then they have lions. And if you notice the way they draw lions on this kind of stuff, the lions don't look like lions actually look. But you know it's a lion. Okay, so the dragons that they're depicting here obviously aren't exactly how the dragons looked, but you know it's a dragon. Okay, which is a freaking T-Rex.
They're
And, you know,
all over. They're all
Yeah.
over this place, though.
Yeah, because they were existed, you know? And then some of them were different. Some of them flew. Some of them were big. Some of them had 4 legs. Some of them had wings. And then some of them, they're like, yeah, we'll give it wings and 4 legs. Like they've combined them. They exaggerated them. They gave them curly tails. They didn't have curly tails, most of them, but the artist didn't know the difference. So he just drew whatever you told him. It's an artist rendition. It's literally like how today when they try to draw T-Rexes and they've never seen them without their skin. So they're like, oh yeah, give it scales. And then they find out, oh, maybe it actually had a little bit of feathers on it too. And they realize that some of the dragons had feathers on them, the T-Rexes. And it's like, but they didn't know that because when they were drawing them all, they thought they were all just like these naked, scaly looking things. Well, that's because their feathers rotted after the flood and it washed all their skin off or washed their stuff off. And so, like, you know, there's lots of different like things that we just don't understand or know. And so the other thing too is like somebody commented about dragons. Like somebody commented in my videos. They're like, I just don't trust Brian because he believes in dinosaurs still. It's like, bro, my freaking friend's dad dug up dinosaur bones. I've seen the dinosaur bones, bro. I worked with Jack Horner. Like dinosaur bones are real, 100%. Okay, a lot of them in the things are plaster, but I will tell you right now, I know a place you can go dig up dinosaur bones for yourself if you don't believe that they're real.
What about the
They are real.
Tatarian flag, though, Brian? I guess that's more of a griffin. I always thought it was a dragon.
It is kind of griffinish looking.
Yeah, it's more like a griffin than it is a dragon.
Well, it's a hybrid made thing anyways.
Well, that's a dragon. That's a dragon.
That's dragony for sure. That's dragony.
Yeah.
That's pretty dragony. But I gotta say this though, because people are like, I don't know if you could trust Brian. Like somebody commented, JT,
Well, I think
Brian believes in dinosaurs. You need to watch out, JT.
Here's the problem, Brian. It's like
What?
it sounds like you're speaking out of both sides of your mouth because you're saying they're dragons, but then you're saying dinosaurs are real. We're like saying that's what I'm saying. Like it's like people are talking past each other because I'm saying dinosaur is a made up thing. It's a made up idea. So yes, some of the bones are real. The bones in the museums are not real.
Yeah,
Those are
but that's
plastic
irrelevant
casts or whatever. But I mean, I guess
because
the point is
they casted them from real bones, so they did cast them from.
not all of them. Not all of them. You can go look this up. I know they say something like if you go look up the most intact T-Rex skeletons, I forgot how many percent they are, but no, they have to like.
They fill
that's why
in the
they
holes.
say that
they fill in the holes. Yeah,
they fill in gaps with bird
of
bones
course.
because they say the structure is similar. So that being said, it's that when I say I don't believe in dinosaurs, it's this. There's a story that goes behind the dinosaur, and I think that's that's the important part about it, is that what this is, it's a placeholder for evolution. It's a way to dismiss the true history and dismiss all mythology as just fiction. And so that's why I just push back, and that's why I just say the whole concept of a dinosaur is basically it's your evolutionary placeholder. Oh, well, if this earth is this old, so it's got to have some creatures that lived here. And then so the idea that you have these gigantic lizards that dominated the earth until some kind of cataclysm happened. It's like that's fantasy. And there is no science behind that whatsoever. But I mean, that's really what they are.
Well,
so if you said that, yes, the bones that they try to say are dinosaurs are real.
Yeah, that's what they are real.
But they are wrong. They're wrong about what they were. In the same way, I'd say like that. let's just say in the times of Noah, you had the mega flora and fauna. So if you take small lizards now and they could get bigger, what would they look like if they were 6 foot tall?
Well, yeah,
right? Like
there is a thing with lizards, and they don't stop growing actually, and so lizards don't have a growth genome ending that we've ever seen. So you can actually grow a lizard and a snake. Reptilians can continue to grow for endlessly. And here's another interesting fact about reptilians. Okay, not only
before you get into all that, all I'm saying is that there are creatures that exist today. If they were bigger, like even like a saltwater crocodile, I think some of them get almost 20 feet long, like some of the biggest ones. So if you found that skeleton, I mean, again, would that not fit the definition of what a dinosaur is supposed to be? It's a pretty terrible lizard. So, but the main point is that we know that saltwater crocodiles live today. And so if somebody told me they were bigger in the days of Noah, I would have no problem believing that. I would have no problem believing. The real pushback that I just try to reject the whole idea is that, again, they are trying to push this evolutionary paradigm. And they're also trying to say, nope, that's definitely not a giant human's femur. That's got to be some kind of weird lizard. And that's what I'm saying. It's like that. So they say dragons not real, even though they're wrote about. They're in the Chinese zodiac. There's ways to make them into medicine. And there's just countless iconography and cultural references all over the place. And that's the thing. And I think that's the part that really, the thing that kind of roils me the most is that they always try to push the idea that people a long time ago were stupid. So if they would have no idea what these things are. So like we can just dismiss all these histories and mythologies, even though, I mean, as far as I know, I thought Marco Polo was a pretty respected explorer, right? So why would we dismiss the idea? If he wrote about dragons, why would you say they're not real? Unless you don't want us to know our true history.
Yeah. And so this is what I would say is like, I'd say, like, I agree with you. And there's one other sub note that I think people get caught up in because they're like, no, all dinosaurs are fake. All dinosaur bones are not real. Okay. There's 2 parts to it. 2 parts. Okay. Part 1 is what you just said. And part 2 is that dinosaurs is a cover story. It covers 2 things. Number 1, it covers the history and story of dragons. Okay. That's the number 1 part that dinosaurs covers. And it says, no, they're just lizards that evolved, blah, 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 blah. That's it. They were dinosaurs. They went extinct. It was an asteroid. It wasn't a big flood, guys, even though we have evidence of them all being killed in a flood. It wasn't a flood. It was an asteroid. Okay. Big lie, cover up. Okay. That's what dinosaurs are. And number 2, the cover up of dinosaurs is to cover up the bones of giants. Because yes, 100%, there are giant bones that have been found, or pieces of giant bones of giant people that used to walk the earth that have been written off and excused as incomplete skeletons of dinosaur remains. You know, indistinguishable dinosaur remains, incomplete. So there's 2 cover stories that the word dinosaur covers. It covers the remains of giants and the remains of dragons. That's what the story of dinosaurs covers, and it is a complete farce. I don't agree with it, but yet these bones are real. So for people to say the bones of dinosaurs aren't real, they're all giants, you are misled. You're deceiving yourself. The bones are real. I've seen them. Okay, I've touched them. They're 100% real. They are. You can find them in the ground. My buddy's dad digs them up out of the ground. I've gone and seen this stuff. Okay, like literally, like you can dig them up, and you will find these creatures that don't exist today, and they will be in the ground. You'll find their bones. You'll find their structures. These creatures died in a flood. They all died in a flood.
In a mud flood, maybe.
In a mud flood or a big water flood, like the flood that happened. Who knows? I don't know. I mean, it could have been the flood of Revelation.
Well, you know, see that's the thing. And I remember in the Gunnar Heinsohn research, he talked about 2 sedimentary deposits that they can find in the record.
Yeah.
The geologists have found what they call the younger alluvial fill, and you find it in valleys. And in the Earth's geology, we only know of 2 alluvial fills. The first one is dated around 10,000 BCE. I do not believe in that date, but I do not challenge it at this occasion. And that's the alluvial fill tied to the flood stories that we have in the Hebrew sources and in cuneiform sources, etc., etc. And then there is a second fill, and above many times in the same places, and it's a real extra separate stratum on the first fill. And the second fill makes difficulties of dating. In one place, it's always upon Roman material. In one place, it's in the 3rd century. In another place, it's in the 6th century. And again, in another place, it's in the 10th century. But the geologists that were occupied with it, they never found 3 such deluge-like catastrophes on top of each other, 3rd century, 6th century, 10th century. They're vertically in the same plane, and there's only one fill. But these geologists believe in Anno Domini chronology, so they have to do what they do. They say, we have this second alluvian fill, a deluge kind of fill, and it's running through the first millennium after Christ, 3rd, 6th, 7th, and 10th century. And I say stratigraphically, it's all 10th century.
Which I think is pretty incredible, because like I said, it fits exactly what I already kind of thought. Was I said,
Right.
well, you would have the deluge, right? So in the days of Noah, you'd have massive sediment moving. The whole world probably looked, well, I mean, it's pretty safe to say the whole world looked different afterwards. And then, but again, I said, but then of course the mud flood is way later. So that he said there's 2. And so that's really interesting. So again, if we talk about all these buildings having these weird kind of semi-basements that obviously were never meant to be basements. They're first floors, sometimes first, second, and third floors are under the ground. Well, that would actually make more sense because you were saying you could go dig up a dinosaur bone. But if they lived 60 million years ago.
They didn't live 60 million years ago.
I know, but I'm saying, but if they did, you could not dig them up unless you had a drill and all kinds of excavating equipment, because that's the real problem I think that they don't address in their narrative, is that how, like, they don't have to dig very far to dig them up.
Yeah, some places
that makes no sense. It makes no sense that the buildings in your local town have more sediment above them than dinosaurs that once roamed the earth and ruled the earth 60 or 70 million years ago.
Well, the bedrock layer that goes across the entire earth is a bedrock layer from the major flood that happened, and it became limey mud, and it preserved footprints and everything. And that bedrock layer is all over the entire earth, and it's different layers of dirt in different areas depending on how much erosion happened in that atmosphere. So some dinosaur bones you have to dig really deep because there's been erosion or pile up before the bedrock. And some of them are right at the surface. Like some of them are really close to the surface that you can dig them out. So it just depends because of the way dirt piled up over them. So it's really like very fascinating when you start looking into, finding dinosaur bones and such. But they're not dinosaurs, they're dragons. They're dragon bones.
Right. Okay. So
We'll
that makes people more comfortable. But I'll just say this, I can understand from the skeptic's point of view, is because it's kind of very similar in anything that's out, like rocket technology, NASA. It's like we've already poked enough holes in their narrative where I don't blame people for not believing anything that comes out of SpaceX and NASA now. And that's the same way. It's like that. How many lies they got to tell you? Well, now I don't believe any of it's true.
Yeah, I get that.
So I really don't blame them. But I mean, yeah, I guess that's the thing. It's like I know that what you think about it, but when you say, "Oh, dinosaurs are real," like dinosaur bones are real, that's when people are like, "Oh no, they're not." Because that's what they're saying. Because they're either Nephilim bones or they're dragon bones.
Yeah, that's
or they
true.
could just be weird lizards that we don't know about that were really big. The point is that
I want to say that too.
They could be other things that we just don't know about, things that went extinct.
Or it could be a whole nother creature that just went extinct because of the flood. Or it could be a whole nother creature that went extinct because of Revelation already happened, guys. Who knows?
It could be. Yeah, I mean, again, like we've had 2 major resets biblically, and who knows what did not come back after those resets. All right, let's switch gears again, so we'll keep it moving.
How about we explain a little bit about the concept of necromancy and how it fits into this worldview that we have.
I do believe that in the earth we have embodied necromancers that have survived. So, in my opinion, it appears that the nanotechnology we're being seeded with, it's not for Joe Schmo, it's not for me, it's literally designed for practitioners. And so our government is searching for those practitioners in the earth. Literally, it was manipulating her to fulfill the end of the ritual. One of their rituals, again, is to place that entity into a jar and bury it. The only thing I do know is that they do exist and that they are acting upon victims.
I gotta be honest, the only reason I really wanted to play that video is because he mentioned necromancers. And I was just watching The Hobbit, so I'm probably not going to be anytime soon that I get off the Tolkien train, but I was watching that, and so what's really interesting about that is that you have, well, if you guys are not familiar, what a necromancer is someone who can basically summon the dead. Is it just talk to him, or it can bring the dead back?
Talk to them or bring them back, raise them.
Right. So
it's one or the other.
So
Both.
I'm not exactly sure what that guy was talking about. He was talking about a lot of different things at one time, but was really interesting so obviously the famous Tolkien adaptations are The Lord of the Rings. Then they went backwards because the cash cow was pretty big. So they went backwards and they tried to make The Hobbit into 3 movies. And I guess they took some other parts of the Silmarillion and some letters from Tolkien. They stretched it out way too much. But what was really interesting in the first movie, or I guess it's continued to all 3 movies, but there's this essence that came back, and they call it the necromancer. And what it is it's Sauron kind of in this form where he's kind of like, he's finally taking bodily form. And so Gandalf and the elves and Saruman have this meeting, and they're talking about this necromancer. And he has the power to summon the dead. And of course, Saruman said, that's not possible. And I just started to think about it. I'm like, what if that was like an early form of like the release of Satan? He was the necromancer. And so what's he bringing back from the dead? The demons. You know what I'm saying? Like, can you imagine like kind of like the
undead army? Yeah,
he could be. Maybe that's what the devil did when he first came back, because
that's what Revelation is. In Revelation 20, it says that the Satan's released, his releasing was bringing him back from the dead,
well, yeah, but I'm just saying like that he's back, and then he's summoning his horde back. He's gathering his army. And I think that's the one thing that it's really hard to tell, because the Bible doesn't really say anything about it, because it is interesting to think that only the devil is mentioned to be put into the bottomless pit. So what about all his minions? Is it possible
they had to be let out with him, I think?
Well, or they were never locked up. I mean, so you have 2 options. So either they were never locked up, or they were let out with him. Or if he did start to summon them, like the master's back, and he's bringing them back from the dead.
They had to have been let out with him, because they had to have been locked up, because if there's going to be 1,000-year reign of peace, like, no demons could be talking to people's minds. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but it's just, like I said, it's just, again, I'm just trying to make this fit because it's interesting. But like the idea that like Sauron, he like lost his physical form, and then he kind of came back, and then it was like it took him a while to like, it's like he wasn't at full strength when he gets out. And then as he does, he starts to grow his, as he starts to summon his army, and probably,
well, he's giving
again, we always talk about like
orcs, right? And then they're rebirthing the orcs from the
they do that later, but I mean,
but he's elves.
But what he's doing, like especially Sauron's doing, is he gives those rings, like specifically, he's got the 9 rings that go to the men, to the kingdoms of men, and he turns them into the ring wraiths. And so they're neither alive nor they're dead. I mean, it's pretty clear that like they're demons. Like they're these undead monsters.
Well, they
And
had
so
a body once and they lost it. Right.
right. And so now that, and of course you think about it, like Nephilim kings, what would they be when they die? There's really no place for them. They're kind of in this place in between the afterlife and then this life. So they're kind of in this just bastardized state. So yeah, I wonder if it's possible that could be something. They're kind of showing you something like that could be. I don't know. Again, maybe I'm just trying to make this fit because I want it all to make sense in my worldview. Like what did it look like?
You want the Tolkien world connection?
I mean, I think that there's something to it. I don't know. I don't think that this guy wrote all these books just based on his wild imagination.
No,
I think
he was an occultist. He 100% was writing the story based on Satan returning. It was 100%. I think everything about the J.R. Tolkien universe has to do with the stories of the Nephilim and Satan's return. Like, absolutely. Like, it's like,
yeah.
He was an occultist. Same thing with C.S. Lewis. C.S. Lewis was also writing about the occult. And so, like, and people are like, he's a Christian author. No, he's not. He is an occultist. Read what they write about him in the papers in the beginning. And they were like, this guy is evil witchcraft writing about witches and Nephilim demons. And they didn't like him.
If you read like the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, it's a Christian story though.
Yeah, but all good stories all good poisons require a lot of truth with a little bit of poison. I mean, he's writing the screw tape letters about what demons are talking about. Like, bro, obviously he's paying attention to demons.
Well, at the same time, you could also say that some people say, oh, King James is bad because he had a book about demonology before they published the King James Bible, when a lot of people could accuse us of the same thing. Oh, wait, they're not Christians. They talk about demons all the time. They just spend an hour talking about demons like every week. So just because you're like kind of giving people information about it doesn't. I mean, it's in the way that obviously this information is conveyed. I've never actually looked into the screw tape letters, so I can't say for sure. The one thing I do know about C.S. Lewis was that he did actually say that Matthew 24 was the most embarrassing moment in the whole Bible, when Jesus prophesied that he was coming back again in that generation, and he didn't. So, I mean, but he wouldn't.
The agenda.
Well, but I mean, I guess the point is that he's not alone in that opinion of people who call themselves Christians. Most people are not bold enough to say, in the same way that Glenn Beck and C.S. Lewis did, they can read the text for what it says, that the apostles thought Jesus was coming back to their generation, and they were wrong. That's what Glenn Beck says. And C.S. Lewis says, he clearly says he's coming back to them, but he was wrong. Now we say
he did come back.
Yeah, Jesus told the truth, and the apostles have believed him, and that's why they believed it.
And that's why, and C.S. Lewis.
So they wrote about it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think C.S. Lewis is an occultist who was put there to pretend to be a Christian and was projecting this Nephilim accepting ideology through his Mr. Tumnus and all his other wicked little creatures, which, by the way, after Aslan takes over, all the bad guys get brought back into their Aslan heaven, and all the good, like, it's like pretty much everybody goes to heaven, regardless of, if you were against Aslan or not. Like, it was kind of like, the whole narrative.
I don't know that that's the case. I think that, I mean, we just watched, actually, the other day, I watched it with the kids. We were watching Chronicles of Narnia. And so, yeah, so the witch kills everybody. And then, so after Aslan is resurrected, after he sacrifices himself, it was really interesting. So he dies on this stone tablet, or the stone altar. And then little girls walk away, and it cracks. And then all of a sudden he's visible behind this like arch. Like he comes back, it's like, it's kind of like, you think about like the Arc de Triomphe, and just the kind of like, even like the Freemasonry symbolism with the two pillars, and a lot of times it has an arch, and then you have like the what is it, the Cancer symbol up there, I think, is that what it is, or it has some kind of, usually, or the all-seeing eye or something.
Yeah, it is the Cancer, the 666.
Yeah, and then but then what it's symbolic of, a lot of times even in the background you kind of see little stars and stuff. The arch and the columns together make a portal. So after he resurrects, he he's in the middle of it. That kind of symbolism does not get by me now. So what he does, though, after that, they don't go right to the battle. He goes to the place where, so when the witch would kill people with that wand, they would freeze, and then there would be statues of them in this dark place. And then he went out there, he reads it in their faces, and then they come back.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you could say that, obviously, yeah, the Mr. Tumnus, he's Pan's son. I mean, it's real clear in the movie when he's like playing his little. They're not panpipe. It's not quite the panpipes, but it's like something similar. And he gives her some kind of weird tea. She goes to sleep, and then
that's creepy.
You see a picture. He's got a picture of his father, and at one point she says something about his father, and he's like, I'm nothing like him.
Oh my gosh. Like,
it was, yeah, I was like, I saw that thing. I was like, that was pretty interesting that they make, like, it's like he is like him, but he doesn't want to be like him. He blames the witch for why he was going to do whatever he was going to do. But that being said, no, I mean, I think that the Chronicles of Narnia is a pretty good movie.
Yeah, but think about all all of the occultic stuff that it's weaving into the back of your mind. And so, like, if you don't know the stories of the Bible and you don't know that he's Pan, that's the goat god, that's Satan, like, if you don't understand the occultic connections, you don't understand all the things in there, to a normal person, it's weaving in this narrative, hijacking the story of Jesus. It's hijacking Jesus and then weaving in a Nephilimized narrative to make you numb to the truth about like the world and everything that's going on, like what the Book of Enoch is. It's like completely destroys the Book of Enoch in a sense. Like that's what that does.
I mean, but I don't know. I guess I don't see it like that. And to quote you, who you quote the Bible, is that Jesus tells the apostles to go preach this eternal gospel of the kingdom to every creature. So then you have all these weird hybrid things, and is it possible that some of those weird creatures accepted that gospel?
Oh, I totally think they did. 100%.
Well, so I mean, I guess the point is like, to me, it's interesting. I tried to watch the second one, the Prince Caspian or something like that. I couldn't get into it, but it was interesting that people lived still in that Narnia place, and they they believed that the Narnians were extinct, but they still existed, and some of the animals that I guess
Narnians
could obviously
are the Nephilim, by the way.
Yeah, right. But it was interesting too is that animals could just talk in Narnia, obviously in the first movie, and then so when the second movie starts. At one point, they have some run-in with this, what they think is a regular Narnian, and I think the dwarf tells them that if you treat somebody like an animal enough, they become one. So it was like he was trying to say like that the animals were not always like animals, but they had been treated like animals, and so they became more feral. It's almost interesting to think like that. Do you wonder if, like, in the days of Noah, before the animals were getting sacrificed and killed all the time by humanity, maybe they were more talkative? You know, people always say Eve does not freak out when the serpent talks to her. And so some people ask, did snakes normally talk back then?
I don't know.
So maybe the animals could talk back in the day. Is that what they're trying to say? I'm not saying that we could know either way, but I don't know, just some interesting concepts in those movies that I don't know. I mean, I think there's something there. But yeah, I also agree that those kind of stories in the way they're told, I think that they're ripped from other things, and that's where they're getting the story from.
This is my view on it. I think all stories are evil.
Not all stories.
I really do.
No.
Wait. Let me tell you my view. I think all stories are evil because I think they steal from truth no matter what. So like when somebody wants to write a story that's like, oh, I want to write a story, but I want to keep it Christian. Like my thought is like, don't. Don't do that. There's already enough people that have written stories. Like, that's where we've gotten our world in such confusion as it is today, because all these stupid stories being written by ignorant people that don't realize they're being influenced by demons, and they're just taking some of the truth and then twisting it just a little bit. I'm just gonna add a little twist to it. Like, that's why we have so many incarnations of Zeus. And you can't like identify him directly because there's like so many different little twisted stories. It's like, oh, it's the same thing, but a little bit different. In my story, oh, I'm going to add this little thing to it. That's distortion. That's Satan. Satan wants to distort the truth. Keep it the way it is. Tell the truth. If you want to write stories, write documentaries. If you want to make movies, make documentaries. If you want to write stories about what history, like historical context. Like, that's what we should be doing. But people writing creative little stories, I think, is all... It opens the space for Satan to disillude, pervert, twist, change things just a little bit, and that's all he needs to do. Change it just a little bit, and then it will get. And then another person comes along, changes it just a little bit more, and they keep doing that till you get to where we are now, where we have no freaking clue what the story or truth is anymore, because it's been distorted after distortion after distortion, because people want to make stories, and now we've got like people making stories and all kinds of stuff that we don't even like. AI is making the stories for us.
AI is terrible at it too. Oh, I was just on a podcast the other day, and somebody was using AI to, I don't know, craft some massive just fabrication, and it was so cringe. I'm sure that maybe the more powerful AI is getting better at it, but yeah, there's something about it. It's just, I think again, like that obviously all good fiction is based on real stories,
I suppose.
So like the ones that are so stupid, it's probably because it did come from some guy's dumb imagination or some dumb computer. All right, let's switch gears. I got a couple more videos I want to show before we close out. I thought I almost was going to dedicate the whole podcast to this, but I couldn't find enough material. but it's just, I guess, because I didn't look hard enough.
75 million years ago, there was overcrowding in another galaxy.
What?
Yes. So they took 1 billion people and froze them, popsicle people, and they put them on DC-8 aircraft. That's what he said. Flew them to Earth, dropped the popsicle people on a volcano in Hawaii, then dropped the hydrogen bomb on the volcano. Then their spirits rose up. And Zeno and them from the Galactic Confederacy captured those spirits. They brainwashed those spirits and flung them out, and they're attached to you, they're attached to me, they're attached to all of us on Earth, and they cause all the bad things in our life. They are going to help you get rid of those alien spirits, but it's going to cost you $300,000-$400,000.
That's the origin story.
That's the origin story
of Scientology.
That's the origin story,
and it's supposed to be fact.
Yes.
Or it's based off a guy who was a science fiction writer.
No, that's written in their operating Thetan 3.
Their Bible.
Their Bible. It's in OT3 level. Probably pay about $75,000 for that level. It goes up to OT8. This is their Bible.
It sounds like it's demons, bro. Like,
yeah, well,
sounds like it's demons.
Yeah, that definitely sounds like demons. But before we even so obviously just hold that thought. But we'll get into, obviously, again, they mentioned that a science fiction writer created
L. Ron
all
Hubbard.
Yeah. So let's watch a quick video about him, and then we can discuss in more detail.
I think the first thing to acknowledge about Scientology is that it's a religion. One of the intriguing things about Scientology is created by a sci-fi writer, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's not, most other religions are created by sort of desert mystics or warriors or introspective people, but a modern day sci-fi writer, he was a fantasist, a lonely guy who was also a narcissist.
And a nutty science fiction writer who wrote more fiction than any human that's ever walked the face of the planet. He made up more shit. He wrote down more things that never happened than anyone who's ever lived. And they don't have a problem with that. They're like,
who's writing things about aliens taking over foreign galaxies. That accounts for a lot of its very bizarre inflection.
See, JT, stories are the devil. That's what I'm saying, bro.
Well,
that's what I'm saying.
Some certainly are. I would agree with you on this story. But that's really weird that they're talking about is that there was these people that were frozen and they were dropped into a volcano, and then a hydrogen bomb was dropped into the volcano, and then the spirits of those people came out and they're with us now.
Oh man, that sounds like Nephilim dying to me. That sounds like Nephilim spirits to me. I mean, like, that's funny though that they were frozen. I guess they were frozen somehow alive potentially, and then when they blew them up in the volcano, then they actually died, and then that's when their spirit was released. I guess that's how they go.
Yeah, like I guess like cryogenically frozen. Well, why would you ship them here only to just to nuke them afterwards?
You ship them here to nuke them so that way their spirit gets stuck in this vicinity. You know what I mean? They want to make sure that their spirit is here somehow influencing this earth in some capacity, right?
Yeah, well, that is obviously, again, like, yeah, it's demons, bro.
Yeah, for sure. Demons, bro.
I mean, because what they're kind of describing does sound like the judgment on the Watchers and their children. And then so God said that because these spirits came from these beings, these giants, that origin is the earth, they're going to be destined to roam this place. They're going to be trapped here as evil spirits. So
Enoch.
So it's like, it's saying that that's what demons are described as. Like we talked about it a little bit when we talked about the Pirates of the Caribbean, and it's like they're hungry and they can never satisfy that hunger. They're thirsty, they can never quench their thirst. They want to feel things, but they really can't, and they're trapped here. It's like their whole existence is like a hell. Is because it's gotta really suck. And so, but is that a way of this guy? And of course, we'll get into these connections a little bit more, because L. Ron Hubbard is connected with both Jack Parsons and Crowley.
Mm-hmm.
So for the big, first off, obviously it sounds like a big lie, but it's almost like it's almost like a lie to explain real phenomenon, right? Mm-hmm. Is that what part of this is? I mean, it's pretty outlandish. It just seems overly complex to explain some of these things, but it is interesting. It's like, yeah, so if you go into their health or their clinics or whatever they call them, their centers, I guess they're going to try to remove some of these beings from you, but they're probably going to try to inject these spirits probably into these people to make them controlled.
Okay, I got to say something, because I guarantee you what they're doing is like akin to what I do praying for people. I would almost guarantee you it's like something akin to like exorcism. And like the thing is, like, there's a lot of people that do deliverance, like praying for casting out demons, that are just like fake. That do what I do, that like actually are putting demons into people. And in fact, you can look it up. It's like they do one in India as well too. They do this thing in India called Kundalini Awakening, and you can look up the Kundalini Awakening videos of like people that like they get Kundalini spirits inside of them, like awaken, and it straight looks exactly like people that don't know what they're doing in deliverance. Like people's bodies start just like contorting and like twisting. Things will come out their mouth they can't control. They'll start speaking other languages. Bro, I guarantee you they're dealing with demon possession. Like, I guarantee you there's like that's why there's people are so convinced when they believe in it that it's real, because when you see demonic possession, when you see your friend or someone you know that's never spoken a lick of Hebrew or another language in their entire life start speaking some other language out their mouth and start talking with a different voice, you're like, this is real. And it's like all of a sudden all other logic kind of goes out the window, and you're like, okay, whatever this is real. And so if they're like doing this to people and evoking demons into them and acting like they're casting them out, which is not what they're doing, and these Scientologist people see something like that, they're totally going to be like convinced that whatever it is real. So they're probably doing that. That's my guess. They're probably told never to talk about it too after they see it, because like the demons will come for them or something.
Well, I mean, that's obviously why people call Scientology a cult, because like once you go with them, you're kind of stuck with them. You have to cut everybody else off who's not in the clique. And then obviously, yeah, you can never talk about it. So, yeah,
I actually have a buddy who's
got all the telltale signs.
Dude, I have a buddy whose dad is one of like the largest contributors to Scientology. He's like a huge contributor. I'm gonna ask him. Maybe I could bring him on the show or something to talk about it. He
He still contributes.
Died. His dad
his dad just passed. Oh, okay.
Yeah, donated millions and millions of dollars of his would have been his wealth when his dad died. All gave it over to Scientology.
Ouch.
Yeah, bro. So he's not too happy about it. He's a little bit like, dang. And his sister's still in it. His sister's on the boat. His sister's like involved on the boat with the people in charge. And he just kind of like had to quietly step away because he started realizing like this is so insane. But he grew up in it. I'll see if I can get him on.
Yeah, that would be an interesting interview. So I want to just, again, I touched on the fact that, so Hubbard, this fiction writer, I think that's a lot of people, all they really know him for is the fact that he was a fiction writer and then he founded this religion, Scientology. But so here's some interesting facts. It says, in the mid-1940s, Hubbard moved into Jack Parsons' Pasadena home. So it's like, not only did he know Jack Parsons, he knew them really well, which was functioning as an agape lodge of the Ordo Templis Orientis, the OTO, a Thelemic organization closely tied to Crowley. Yeah, so Crowley started that. And so Parsons, who founded JPL, like the Jet Propulsion Lab, that's like literally powers NASA's rockets, right? We've talked about him a lot. I always make the connection with him and Howard Stark, Tony Stark. I mean, like he looks just like him. Lots of weird things with him. But then it said Hubbard participated in Thelemic sex magic rituals known as the Babylon Working in 1946, with Parsons conducted to try to summon an incarnation of the divine female Babylon. Yeah, so later it talks about...
What year was that again?
46, and of course, like the Whore of Babylon.
Sounds really close to that other year.
Was officially a nation in 1948. Yeah, but so there was other things where like Hubbard ran off with like Jack Parsons' friend or like basic common law wife, and they stole a bunch of money from him, and he used it to buy a yacht, and they ran away. I think Parsons eventually sued him and got some money back. But yeah, I mean, like, those are some interesting connections, like really close connections with, like obviously the guy we talk about a lot, that Crowley's connected with so many people or influenced so many people that are into the occult. Jack Parsons was a straight up Satanist, worshiping the sun and all this kind of stuff, doing, sex magic rituals. And so this guy, this fiction writer, ends up starting his own religion. Wow. And obviously it's like, if you had to guess which religion was started by a science fiction writer, if you get the origin story, like was just told about Xenu and 75 million years ago and all this kind of stuff, and popsicle people being put in a volcano and released with a hydrogen bomb, I don't think it would be hard to pick out which one it was. All right, maybe I'll show just one or two quick videos. I thought this one we don't have a lot to say about this one, but I thought,
okay, one more.
Yeah, we got one more in us.
For those who don't know, in Melbourne we have a war memorial shrine, which is basically, it looks like a Greco-Roman temple. It is literally a temple to the ancestors. And there's 4 pillars with statues on them, and they have like certain characteristics that embody certain things. And one of them is goddess kind of looking woman sitting on a throne holding a crown of thorns, because sacrifice is like, one of the 4 pillars that holds up a nation. That's the idea. So the temple has a lot of pagan, you would say, like characteristics. There's some Christian things too. And obviously that notion of sacrificial love is very foundational to Christianity because it's embodied in Christ. And that's what that crown of thorns is obviously signifying. And when you go into the temple, there is the tomb of the unknown soldier in the middle of the temple. It shines in through the roof. It's really quite beautiful. And there's representations of military battles and stuff all over the walls and on beautiful tiling. And in the center, there's the tomb of the unknown soldier. It says something akin to like, no man hath love greater than this. Meaning like, no man have love greater than this, laying down one's life for one's people. It was actually funded by the returned soldiers from World War One. It wasn't actually even funded by the government. They got together and funded it, and they built it. I think it was completed in the early 1930s, back when we were a real people, and we still knew who we were. That's the kind of thing that we built. And if you look at like the opening day, like it's 300,000 people there. First memorial service held on the shrine. And in those days, like, the population of Melbourne couldn't have been more than 500,000 people, maybe 1 million people max. So 300,000 people showing up, it's like almost everyone in Melbourne showing up for something. But the point that I was making was that sacrifice is really the foundation of a nation, and is really like the highest form of love. Unless we can start to cultivate a spirit of being willing to embrace sacrifice, like if nationalism just has to be easy, like it's just about ticking a box in a voting booth, watching a particular live stream or something, but you don't ever have to actually give anything up, well, then we deserve to lose. We actually need thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of men willing to actually sacrifice, not necessarily die, but like sacrifice for saving our nation. And every nation ever that has ever been under threat has required this to survive.
I wanted to show that there's no way that thing was built in Melbourne, Australia, to celebrate World War One. Are you kidding me? Like that was just another one of those examples where a World War One memorial in Melbourne, Australia.
Bro, did that make you sick? Because that made me kind of sick just looking at that building and realizing how deceived everyone is. Bro, that is a sacrifice ritual temple, guys. That is a human sacrifice. That's why it's in that shape too. That's like a pyramidic shape slowly.
I don't think so, Brian. I think
at the pyramid at the top, bro. Look at that.
I know, but what I'm saying
is it's the unfinished pyramid, bro. What do you think that is?
Well, put it this way. That looks like that was added later. It was probably a dome before.
Maybe.
The point is this thing has no business. Look how big it is, Brian.
Yeah.
Melbourne, Australia. Are you familiar with how much Australia did in World War One?
Yeah, a whole lot of nothing.
I'm guessing like they didn't do a lot, but I mean, just look at that thing. It's like this. I mean, so again, like I don't doubt that wicked men tried to repurpose this as some kind of a sacrifice thing, but no, I don't buy for 1 second that this thing's old. This thing's Roman, dude. This thing is really old.
It is absolutely really old, but what I'm saying is what it's been repurposed to now is disgusting. That disturbs me. Sorry, anyways. That's why I need I need one of those condenser things for my mic so I can yell.
Yeah. So again, it's like, so it was established in 1918, but then it says it was unveiled in November 11th, 1934. 11/11. Interesting. But
wow. Yeah.
Let's see if you go to the history of it, and it says, when does it say it was built? How long did it take to build? Yeah, look. Okay, so is this a construction photo right here?
It's still there. I mean, it's like
looks pretty.
Yeah.
There's no construction photos of this because it's like they did. This thing was there for a long time. Oh, they got a boat in there.
There is no like structure of it.
Yeah, construction. So it's saying it took 7 years to build.
Silliness.
The foundation was laid on, again, 11/11. Well, I mentioned it. People don't even know this. You know that World War One, that they signed the armistice to end World War One? They signed it on November 11th at 11 a.m.
Huh,
they went 11/11/11. Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah. So it's interesting. This thing has a sun feature too, where I mentioned I think it's in the Phoenix area. They have a war monument for Veterans Day, and the sun shines through this thing perfectly on 11/11 at 11 a.m.
Wow.
What's going on, guys? So it's November 11th, 11/11. Interesting, right? It's also interesting it's the day we celebrate Veterans Day. And do you know why we celebrate Veterans Day on 11/11? Well, because they signed the armistice to end World War I on 11/11 at 11 a.m. Wow, that's probably just a coincidence, huh? Actually, we know it's probably not a coincidence. What's also interesting is in Arizona, there's this cool Veterans Day memorial that has this sun feature, and it only works on 11/11 at 11 a.m. Just 3 more 11s. That's kind of weird. It's almost like these people are into esoteric numerology. I think they might be. What do you guys think? I think we should stay curious and ask questions. What do you want to bet that this has a sun feature that works at 11/11 at 11 a.m. too?
Probably, I would imagine.
But I'm just saying, come on, man. Does anybody really think? Do you think that was? Look at that. Tell me that's not ancient.
Dang, that's interesting.
Look how friggin' big it is. I'm telling you, dude. Just look at that thing. That thing is awesome. Dude, you don't build... Australia? Melbourne, Australia?
Yeah, that's weird.
I don't buy it. I don't buy it one bit. You guys believe whatever you want, but you know my opinion about it is that our history is a set of lies agreed upon. Well, anyways, guys, that's the show for today. I really appreciate you guys hanging out with us. Please check out the sponsor of this podcast, Modern Roots Life. You want to get healthy, you want to support this podcast, you can do both by checking out Modern Roots Life. And if you want a t-shirt, check out jtfollowsjc.com, link in the description. You can get a Jesus Said There Would Be Haters shirt, or and hopefully soon you can get one of these, an Ancient Angel shirt from Brian's store. Are the shirts available, Brian?
The website's up. I had one more technical difficulty, and it will be up this week. So yeah.
Okay, so by the time the people see this, hopefully there will be shirts available. And if the shirts are available, you'll notice because I'll have a link in the description. So yeah, please check that out. And of course, guys, if you guys want to see these episodes early and uncut, check out my Patreon if you want to support me. You can do that, and obviously you can there's lots of benefits. I've been putting up things probably about twice a week, so you can always get the JT's mixtapes early. I've been shooting to get them on a Thursday, so you don't have to wait till Monday. Potentially you can watch them as early as Thursday, like at noon. That's my goal. So anyways, guys, I really appreciate you guys hanging out with us. Love y'all. God bless.
Later.
Everyone left me. Everyone deserted me. Jesus was always there. When everyone hated me and walked away, Jesus never walked away.